Yes, sir.
Hey, welcome to episode 5. I guess it's still week 4, isn't it?
Yes.
You're knocking them out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we have a passion about this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just be the loudest.
Okay.
Knocking them out. That's
Here.
awesome.
All right,
We're good.
Check mic 1, 2.
Good.
We're ready to roll. We have Blake Compton with us this week, and I'm really excited about the journey that he has to share. And I'm going to let him describe more of it. However, this week's episode will be about silencing the ego and some plant-based spiritual medicine, which Blake is an unofficial expert at, I would say.
Wouldn't go that far, but I'm diving into it.
Yeah, much more of a learned amateur than myself or Aaron. So we're going to learn a lot this week. And Aaron and I have both been on our egoic journeys, but I think that Blake's story and when he started and everything that's happened is very enlightening, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you. So
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do the same thing we normally do. Define some things, tell about the journeys, go into hopefully deep conversation that will help whomever decides to check in, and then distill all that information into some usable tools. But let's get started with that.
Awesome.
Blake, introduce yourself, man. Excited to have you.
Yeah, well, so for those of you tuning in that have no idea who I am, I'm a local Columbus entrepreneur. Started a commercial construction company about 11 years ago. At the height of my, I think, ego controlling me, I was, had a very successful, outward business, doing a lot of press, doing a lot of really marquee, cool breweries and restaurants and big projects in downtown Columbus that I was really proud of. I guess growing up, I grew up with a father who was in the construction industry, and I worked with him for many years. And then my mother was a social worker, and our family was a foster family. And because my mom was a social worker and a therapist, when I went through things as a kid, she was like, you should go to therapy. And the foundation that I took from that was learning to look for coaches. I really liked having people and working with people to get better. And so for most of my professional career, I've yearned and looked for coaching and services. But most of my professional career up until the last couple years here, it was kind of, how do I become a better business person? How do I learn how to run a business better? And how do I be a better leader? And some of that did touch on how to be a better person for myself and how to respect and set boundaries for myself. And quite frankly, in my 20s and early 30s, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't see it. I had a business coach who every week would hand me a meditation book. Hey, read this book, check this book out. And I'm like, I don't know if I want that in my life. It's going to change who I am. And I got where I am by being who I am. And so I was actually resistant to bringing meditation into my life, really until that same coach kicked me out of his group because of my struggles with alcohol and the pain that I was sharing with the other people in that group. And that was a wake-up call for me, but it also was the beginning of a really important journey. That was in 2016, and that was when I met my still meditation coach, Juan Alvarez. I've worked with him since 2016, pretty much weekly. And I've been in a men's group with him of other entrepreneurs. And that was the beginning of learning how to do breath work and change how I look inside, and to start to see how the things I'm doing inward affect the things outwardly, the people in my life and the community and just my whole life experience. So I think that's a good stopping point.
That's thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot more to your journey, but I think that's an excellent introduction. Aaron, would you like to share a little bit of your journey with ego and how you met it?
Oh yeah, the first time I feel like I was introduced to my ego, I probably was working at OSU Medical Center, and I went from being housekeeper to doing uh, registration or patient finance work. So for me, that was a big jump. I kind of went from being an actual housekeeper to somebody that's actually handling paperwork, talking to patients, talking to doctors, whatever. And for me, I just felt like outside of work, that kind of attached to my identity. I'm like, I'm somebody. So as that lingered on, my ego started to get out of control. As in, like, I just kind of felt I started to actually think I was better than other people. Uh, yeah, it was a lot of toxic things that came with the ego around that time. And that was like the very first time where I felt like, I had accomplished something. And I was like, okay, I'm like done it. Because, I didn't finish high school, right? So for me to go from, essentially, $10 an hour at the time to $18 at that time, working with everybody with college degrees and everything else.
Yeah.
I felt like I had just achieved like something that, that many can't do.
It's unheard of almost.
Yeah. And I'm like, look at me. I did this. I achieved that. Like the people around me, they hold degrees and everything. I'm on the same stature now, even though I don't have a degree or whatever. But it I don't know. It was such a toxic mindset, and I just thought I thought I was the man. I thought I was. So, that was really my very very first introduction, and it hit me once I realized how bad I was treating the people around me. And, I feel like I wouldn't treat them too bad, but I was just arrogant, ego arrogant.
When you meet someone who isn't aware that everyone can be equal, and especially when power has gotten to your head, which creates that ego, it can be so apparent. You can see someone where they start to talk about, you're less than because of a title or because of how much money you make or whatever perceived success is important to that person and how they're portraying it. And man, I mean, that's such a big deal in the construction industry. Right. I mean, that's just like an everyday walk. There's always a power struggle, and it's top and bottom, right? I mean, you saw it in that promotion that you experienced.
Right.
And, but I mean, I've seen it in, business owners to inspectors to bankers to the drywallers, and everyone can choose their own power. I mean, like, how many years have you worked, or can you do this better than me? No, well, then I'm better than you.
It's in every industry, yeah, especially in the hospital. Half of the doctors in just in the hospital, you meet them outside of work, they're fine, they're cool. But in that space, that's their space. They treat people bad,
and the system programs you to do that. Right? I mean, the system says you are the doctor, you make the decision, and the nurse practitioner's like, oh my god,
yeah.
You're like, what's the patient's name? You don't know the patient's name. Okay, let me tell you what's going on. Yeah,
right.
But even at that same point, I mean, anyone can add value. You have to be able to listen, and I think ego clouds that ability to listen.
Right.
And I don't just mean listen to words, right? You're listening to nonverbals. You're listening to the situation. Right. The energy in the room.
People are more likely to take input from just because this is a doctor. Oh, he's right about even something not even medical related. It's just. Yeah, there's just the value system there is in every industry. Now I'm in real estate like you. I see it. As I go to networking events, first thing people say, oh yeah, I'm so and so. I got 180 units. Now it's like, oh, who owns more units? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, you guys can have that.
Yep. Why stop going to those events?
Right.
A lot of people talking, no one's listening.
Right.
Like what you said about ego clouds the ability to listen. That is what struck me and egoically made me want to talk about me. So I'm going to do that real quick. But ego does have the ability to listen. My journey, I think, is more recent than both of yours in truly understanding my sensitivities and my ego. go, I took a look at my business in 2016. Same thing that a lot of things change for a lot of people. And I said, hey, if my business isn't successful, well, it's a reflection of me, which means I'm not successful. So I should probably learn how to be successful and thus serve a personal development journey.
Yeah.
Fast forward to like less than a month ago, and I was having a very deep, profound, and sensitive conversation with my life partner, Compton, who some of you might remember from Monday. We had a great conversation about our inner demons and what they look like, and how we feed them versus how we play with them. And ironically, she's like, she told me that to not feel criticized by this, but I was unable to take criticism. And it was like this little light went on in the attic. Like, oh, holy crap. I am like, my ego has always been not of one of power. It's been of a lack of self-esteem and defending and trying to not have the outside world control me because I was so sensitive to it. And so taking criticism was a huge issue for me that I didn't even realize. And as soon as that happened and I wanted to fight it, I'm like, wait, that's so right. It's absolutely correct. What is that thing? And I'll go into some other things like decoupling the identity and caring about what others think and things like that. But it's all tied into that egoic survival mode. And I guess my definition of ego, the way that I've described it to myself as I've learned more biology and spirituality and things, like, is we're a mess of a bunch of just organs that kind of work together. And like we've grown into that, but in order for those organs to survive working together, I think they have to be centered around one principle or one piece, and that identifies itself and comes up as an ego, and so it keeps us alive. It lets us survive. I think every single human is born with ego, and it's one of the great mysteries of how to quiet it and work with it. And I'm not going to say getting rid of it because it entirely might not be possible inside this astronaut suit our souls are wearing. And so I've really had a lot of experience lately, and so I just want to share my journey and my definition, and I want to listen to Blake about all of his tools that he's used at the end. But a few days after learning, hey, I don't take criticism well, and I'm missing out on so many opportunities to learn by not taking criticism well and defending against it.
This was just this week or last week?
3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once I started my cleanse and my new year right before January 1st. And then I had a talk with my old spiritual teacher, and there's things and images that happened in my head and that prepared me exactly for this conversation. And so she said, Brian, you're not supposed to care what other people think. They're only here to teach you about yourself. They're not here to unconditionally love you. And I've been looking for love from the world since I was probably 7 years old. And I woke up into reality and formed a consciousness. I can only find love unconditionally through whatever you want to call it, soul, spirit, heart connection, openness. In the Christian ideology, it would be Christ. In Bhakti Yoga, it's Krishna. In Buddhism, I don't know as much about, but it would be finding the oneness or the death of the ego.
Yeah.
And so transferring my consciousness from putting everybody else on a pedestal, caring about what they thought, and transferring that to, those little messages and inspirations that I get and what I feel in my heart, that's what I need to care about. It just shifted my entire world. And I felt these like muscles that I'd had tense for, 27 years, pop open. And I finally got like my stomach to relax. Weirdest feeling. And I was tired for 36 hours, just like so like drained into the couch, like no amount of coffee or Coca-Cola or anything else would help me get out of no nutrition. And I was blissful exhaustion. It's like, I've been holding onto this thing for 27 years, and then your hand has to heal after you let go. My body had to do some healing. I was quickly thrown into, a situation where I realized now that I had the foundation, I had a lot of work to do on it, because there were things that upset me, but I was able to talk about them without criticizing myself and doing the reactions that I normally do. And so all of that also coincided with decoupling my identity from what I thought I was supposed to be doing, which is repeating my father's success of building a multinational, multi-million-dollar software company. Mine was maybe focused on technology and blockchain and things like that. And I realized that it closed my mind off from being able to see who I actually am and what I actually want. And so those three kind of decouplings of taking criticism, caring what others think, and assuming my identity was this certain way in a material success, which is not who my soul is and what it is. Man, I had a journey with ego the last 3 weeks.
That's amazing. And you had such a physical visualization here of letting go of something. And that's one of the biggest tools of change for me, is recognizing what attachment is for your ego. Because the ego has attachment to outcome, attachment to past, attachment to title, or perception of success, yes. Right? And if you learn to release and accept that this may be a little advanced, but that there is no past and there is no future, there is only now. And that that doesn't mean you don't plan, right? It's like, just every day I wake up and whatever happens, right? God bless to the people that can live that life.
Right.
But like, if you're in America and you're living in, regular society, you're going to spend a lot of time battling with other people's egos, dealing with your own ego, and you have to plan ahead on some levels. I mean, everyone has to have some kind of calendar to do something.
Yeah, I want to stay in this apartment.
But you got to pay rent. But the attachment around, gain and loss, and being able to say, well, whatever I'm getting in this moment, if landlord shows them, says, hey, we sold this place, rent's going up 4x, and you're like, I can't afford it. They're like, cool, you have to move out next week. You can create all this anxiety and attachment towards the pain, towards that person or the next thing, and create the story and share all this pain out into the world, or you can just live with it and let go and move on, right? And there's a lot of privilege to say that, because some people don't get the chance to move on, and some people don't get the chance to have people around them that show them that kind of path, right? A lot of people they grow up holding pain and being presented with, this is pain, this is my pain, now it's yours, and you pass it on to your kid. But knowing that is a scenario can also let you forgive people in your life, your parents, your friends, your family, the people you walk by, the homeless guy on the street. Like, they're walking with pain that they can't let go of. And you have to go, well, that's not my pain. They're not trying to give me their pain. They're trying to say, hey, I hurt. And my only solution, and the only tool I was given as a child or whatever, is to hurt others. So I feel like you're like me. And if you can accept that and let go, then all of a sudden your ego isn't ignited when someone, spits in your face or almost runs you over as you're crossing the street, and flicks you off. Like you're just like, they must be having a bad day. Like, you find a way to rationalize that they're probably good people.
Right. I love that. The question I like to ask, one of the things I'm working towards and I do not have open yet, is compassion. And I'm very aware of it. So I've just gotten to the baseline of where I can work on working with my ego, but compassion is next.
What blocks you?
Jealousy and envy.
Jealousy of success, everything.
It's everything.
So it's a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, you don't have enough, and if someone has more than you, why don't you have that?
Or the fear of somebody taking something I already have.
Yeah.
Which is the difference between envy and jealousy.
Right.
But they're essentially, it's the scarcity, or I'm going to lose this.
Yeah.
So has a lot to do with like I'm very much an in love person, but because I'm so sensitive and have so much love, that also on the other side creates so much fear of loss of that love.
Mm. And which is ultimately can lead you to loss of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that grip makes things go away, right?
Mhm.
The more you learn how to let go, the more confidence you can have in yourself, and that confidence just exudes. And then next thing you know, instead of like worrying about what people are taking from you, you're worrying about how much you can give to others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm like in the middle of that seesaw right now, if that makes sense.
I think I would say you're always going to be. I mean, if you end up on one side and you're just like, no, I'm perfection, you're probably ego. So there's a constant, like, I mean, it's like a wave. It's like an energy wave. I mean, it's like a sound wave. It's up and down and up and down. And you just have to know where you're at and accept that when you're down, there's going to be good. And when there's good, when you're up, you're going to have a down. And I mean, I have a whole story on that because that was an impetus moment during the pandemic, right before I shut everyone out.
Let's hear it.
Awesome. Yeah. So, a little, again, back to my, entrepreneur story. I was like running this construction company. 2017 was the best year of my company's history. We were doing all these cool projects. I was madly in love. And I think that's how we kind of met, was through my now ex-wife, but I was getting married. And that was the beginning of truly looking in the mirror of like what I needed to work on. And I spent the next 2 years in a really bad state. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I could apply things. I could be like, oh, I'm struggling in my marriage, or the business is struggling, or this, or I need that. And I was working with Juan. And now when Juan and I look back on those years, he's like, you just didn't have any room to breathe. Even though you said you were doing the breath work, and even though we met every week, you didn't have a chance to breathe. You didn't have any space. And I remember as we got into 2020, we had, as a company, rebounded, and we were going into what was going to be one of the most successful years, rivaling 2017. And then the pandemic hit. And for the first month of the pandemic, I had separated from my ex-wife, or my wife at the time. And I spent every waking day analyzing all of the COVID stuff and just providing as much valuable information to all my entrepreneur friends, and just really trying to be a place of like peace for people who were at war, the restaurateurs, the brewers, everyone that was like, I'm going to lose my business, everything I've worked for. And I was like, here's all these tools. Here's what's happening. Here's this like, just, digestible email every day. And I did it for like over a month. And what I was doing was not working on myself. And I was looking for the output to solve like the chaos for me, and and I just burned myself out. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I hated everyone. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to talk to anyone. The pandemic took so much from business, there's so many things that were unfair. And I got to the point where I didn't talk to anyone for months. There was that period when we weren't allowed to leave, right? But in the construction industry, we still could work through that period, and we were still working. We just weren't, we were remote working. And the only person I was really seeing at that time was my father. And he would come over and bring me lunch, and he would sit with me. We would talk. And I lived next to the Idea Foundry, and there was a few times that the founder of the Idea Foundry, Alex, me and him would go and sit socially distanced on the roof and just talk about life. And so I took my dad up there one time, and I remember sitting up there, and I was crying, and I was in pain, and I just didn't care if I was alive. And I just said, I'm so sick of the roller coaster. I'm so sick I don't want a good moment. I just am so sick of the bad moments. Just give me something in the middle. And it was around that time where I finally like caught myself up and with my mental health. And I said to myself, I'm not doing well, and I know it, and I'm not going to defeat this by myself. And for the first time since I was a teenager, I went to the doctor and I got on some medication. And I remember I was only on that medication for 5 weeks. And I remember immediately it gave me exactly what I asked for. I had no highs, I had no lows. It was just this mute version of life. And unfortunately, in that period, that was in the summer. So it was late July as I was going into August. And at that time, I was fighting my ex-wife and I were going back and forth on trying to disillusion. And I finally got to the point where I said, filing for a divorce, have to do it. So I'm on this medication. We filed for divorce. And that same week, my father passes away unexpectedly, day before his 64th birthday. It was like, it was world changing to me. I worked with him my entire career. He was literally my best friend. And I remember, like, my brother's the one that found him. My older brother, he was living with him. But my brother called me, told me it was like the day before his birthday. And I'm like, Bryce, you're joking. Like, what are we getting for his birthday? No, serious. This is serious. And then I was the guy that I had to call everyone because Bryce was like, my brother was just couldn't fathom what he was experiencing. First son, like he's the first son. He was like, what did I just walk into? What is this life-changing moment? He didn't know what to do. And so I was the one that had to call my mom, my sister, his brothers, call. And it was like the hardest call over and over again as I'm, in a stupor gathering stuff to drive home to Granville, Ohio. And I remember showing up and seeing him and not being able to cry because of the medication. And that was the last day I took the medication. I was just like, this is not how I'm going to live my life. So I tell that story to kind of bring this big explosion of a moment of my life, right? I'm going through this divorce and there's all this pain. Both of us, her and I, were in so much pain, and we were sharing our pain at each other. And like, we were just trying to get through all that stuff. And I was finally giving up and saying, I just need help. And I took that medication. And then this moment with my dad. After that moment, I guess there's all these stories in that scenario, or like that next week that were really big. And I just remember after the funeral was over and I didn't have a job to do, like for a week and a half, I was like, I can be the man of this family. I can show up. I can speak at this funeral. I can do everything I need to do for all these other people. Holy shit, I hope I don't have to do this for myself. Like, I hope, and I knew it as soon as everything was gone and it was just me again. I was suicidal. I had no care for the success of my company anymore. I told my brother-in-law at the time, who was running my company, I said, I'm not coming back until this divorce is over. And I don't know when I'm coming back. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's not this year. So do whatever you want. And I was like, I still to this day look back on that moment and I was accepting of it going away because I had accepted that I did what I set out to do with my dad 10 years prior. When we said we're going to start this company, I was like, here's the things I want to achieve. And I achieved them. And so some of that, when we talk about power and success, like I had gotten to throw that all away. I got it. And I was like, this isn't it. What's the reason to live if these goals that I'm setting aren't filling the hole, right? And I didn't have the answer in 2020. And it does kind of lead into this plant medicine space that like exposed me to having a deeper conversation with my ego, seeing my ego, and really being able to go, oh, like I don't need some grandeur reason to live. And I don't need to think 30 years in the future or 5 years in the future, like as a reason to be getting up in the morning. I could just get up in the morning and take what I have for the day and be okay with that. And sometimes it's going to be high production, amazing, influence in people's lives. And other days I'm going to play League of Legends on my computer all day long.
That's so perfect on so many levels. Thank you for sharing that. I know how big of a deal it is in this moment because we've been talking and hanging out a lot more over the last few months, and you've alluded to these stories, but you've never gone into the detail and relived it. And I know that is a very vulnerable place, so I just want to say there's gratitude here for that.
Thank you.
But I also want you to talk about where he left off with wrestling with your productivity and rest and specifically video games, because we were literally talking about that right before
We
Blake
had,
came in and we had a conversation yesterday.
we had this exact conversation yesterday. I was telling Brian like how I want to wake up, like maybe an hour or two earlier.
5:30.
Mm.
You said you wanted to wake up at 5:30.
6.
No.
Same thing at that point. But and Brian was telling me, stop being so hard on yourself and learn to relax and stop. Why do you need to do these things or why that? And, it helped me a lot because actually, the same day yesterday, I went home, looked at my computer, and didn't know what the hell to do. So I just played video games for the rest of the day. So I was like, that's what I felt like doing.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like doing. But, at a time I used to struggle with like not doing enough. Like it just, and the thing was, I wasn't even doing anything.
Yeah.
But like at the time, because, I was trying to figure out my marketing business also with Brian as well. And like, I was just be mad. Like, I was even waking up at like 5:30 journaling. I was doing so much things that they tell you to do to be successful and all that stuff. And, a lot of that stuff just makes you feel good in a like a maybe like a mental way. Like
Yes.
it does. It's work isn't even being done. You just you got all these success people telling you to journal.
Yeah.
Take cold showers. I was doing everything that I was taking cold showers. I was journaling. I was waking up at 5 a.m. I don't know what I wasn't doing, but everything but work.
Yeah.
Looking at endless YouTube videos all day, thinking I'm productive.
Well,
But
that's funny that you ended on that statement because the relax, don't be so hard on yourself is the beginning of that conversation internally of like releasing the grip on that expectation that you have to be something you're not.
Right.
And the journey of seeing your ego is honoring your boundary and knowing what your boundary or boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it is a lifelong process to be able to wake up in the morning whenever you wake up in the morning and be like, that's when I needed to wake up in the morning and not have any pain. Now, again, there's a lot of privilege in that statement. Sometimes you have a lot of obligations. Like I really feel for, people who are living with financial less than in a scarcity where like they constantly have to be working. They constantly have multiple jobs just to break even. And if something happens to their car or to their health, they can lose stuff. Like there's a completely different space in that true financial scarcity. But then there's a lot of high performing folks who do have enough income who are just so hard on themselves because they expect that they read those books and they have these expectations on to be the thing they want to be. They have to do something that's not them. And you have to learn how to be successful inside of you. I am not perfect at that, but what I have learned how to do is be vulnerable with my own boundary. So like when I went back to my company, I didn't hide that I had done ayahuasca. I didn't hide that I found plant medicine as a way to better myself. I share it. And that's not for everyone. I've been around a lot of entrepreneurs and I'm like, I'm probably not going to talk to this guy about that thing. Like they're not that interested in that kind of thing. Okay, that's fine. But I want to build a culture of openness and vulnerability so that when someone's like, sadly enough, in my company in the last 2 years, we've had like 4 or 5 people have their father and mother die since mine. And so we've been dealing with a lot of parental death. And, I got a project manager who on Friday, tomorrow is going to be his 1-year anniversary of his father dying. And he was like, I'm taking the day off. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Creating a vulnerable space to allow people to share their vulnerable things, knowing that they're not going to lose something. They're not going to lose their job or like, have a performance review that says they don't show up when they need to, is like really important to me as a leader. It's like creating that insane environment I want to work in. And then learning your boundaries and being able to vocalize them in a healthy way to help people succeed with you is like, it's a game changer. And like honoring your boundaries. So for instance, if you're a night owl and you love gaming at night, you need to just say, I love gaming at night. And there's going to be some nights that I stay up till 4 a.m. And then you're going to wake up late and maybe you're going to miss something or screw something up. And it's just a reflection. You go, oh man, 2 days later, you're like, I'm really stressed out and I'm tired. I gamed 2 days ago. Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I'm probably going to do that again. And part of doing that again is I'm going to have these consequences. And so I either need to find a way to like power nap the next day or change my schedule or schedule it more intentionally and not have that, like, because I am a gamer, man. Like I'll go home and I'll be like, just one, right? And then I lose and I'm like, well, just one win. And then you win and you're like, man, that was a good win. I'm probably going to get another one. And then you lose again. Next thing you know, there's 3 hours gone by and you're like, oh, it's 2 a.m. Oops. And you just go, okay, well, how do I accept the decisions that I've made, right? And you don't beat yourself up over it because that doesn't solve anything to treat yourself like crap. Yeah.
I think going back to ego, there was something I took from both of you guys' story and even mine when you first start to notice your ego. I think there's having that awareness that you have an ego is a step forward.
Yes.
Because for me, I had to step back and be like, okay, I have an ego. And every time I do something, like sometimes I find myself when people like post stuff in the gym, or I actually made a post that was kind of probably ego because I said I'm coming up on my 100th wholesale deal or whatever, in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, why am I posting this? Why? It's like, I'm looking for like validation, envy, and that goes into my ego. But a lot of the times I delete some of the stuff I just want to post, like just kind of like it comes off some people probably bragging, where I just want to talk about like milestones.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think that's what a lot of people use social media for.
Absolutely. It's a very vain product out there. Right. And society enforces it. I mean, right. Like reinforces it over and over again. That's kind of talking about social media and like, celebrating your successes, right? It goes back to that intention. And just as you were saying, like there's a secret of like being able to see that ego. Right. Being able to say, okay, I'm going to share this success because I'm proud of it. And I don't, regardless of what anyone says, like I'm not looking for anything for saying this. This is for me and for my friends and followers and supporters. Because there's people out there that want to see you share that. Right, and I'm pointing at myself when I say that because after, during the pandemic, when I was in that depths of depression, I turned Facebook off. And I turned it back on for my dad's funeral to talk to family and stuff. And I've left it on and I haven't posted since April or March of 2020. I have not posted anything. And if you go and scroll through my Facebook, I mean, I got made fun of in my 30th roast for being like, I would post 10, 30 times a day. And most of it wasn't me talking. It was sharing stories of other people. I love to aggregate good content. Local content or things that were important to me. And I would talk or do other things like that too. And still to this day, I love the day in review because I see these stories of really milestone moments in my life. And I'm like, man, people celebrated with me. Why don't I share that anymore? And it's this is a real moment challenge for me of like, it's because I haven't fully understood what's ego and what's not when it comes to posting. And so I just stay out of it. I just stay out of it. And that's helped with my mental health. But I also know I've got a lot of people who really care for me and want to know the cool things that I'm doing. They want to know that I'm happy and healthy. I mean, I talk to people now who haven't seen me for 2 years and they're still like, you okay? You all right? You've had a hard couple of years. And I'm like, yeah, I'm freaking the best I've ever been though. Right. And you just don't know it because I don't tell a story anymore.
I often try to distinguish whenever I make something or post something, I'm just like, am I doing this to share or is I'm doing this to receive?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process with that.
Let's take this as an example. When I'm inviting my friends and when I go back to check on it and to see if anyone has accepted, see if anybody has comment, who shared, how many views there are. And
It's so hard.
It's so hard. And so
Yeah.
I have to tell myself, no, we're doing this only to serve. And if it helps one person see the world a little bit differently, which it has, we've gotten that feedback and joy. Mission is already accomplished. Yeah. And so I work every time that I work on this to just keep that at front of mind, because there is such an easy propensity for the corruption of the ego to take over like instantly and count successes as number of views and stuff. But that's not why we started it. It's not why we're going to continue it. But it's a struggle and a teacher I get to use every time I work with this thing that is so much passion, so much love, and so much like what I, am seeing as service.
Let me feed your ego and say I envy you. I envy you because I have long wanted to stream or have my own thing where I talk, and I am afraid. I'm afraid of the vulnerability of what you just talked about. One, getting sucked into that like magnet. Because I mean, I have run, I have run many different I grew up Facebook marketing. I mean, when before the construction company, I was a soccer fanatic, and I ran the Hudson Street Hooligans, and I helped form the Nordeca that is now this giant wall of people at crew games. Like I grew every step of the way. Like I was doing that before Facebook had business pages and then when they first got into communities, and you're like, wait, I can private message every single person in my group at any time I want. And then one day they're like, we need to stop that. This isn't good. But it was awesome. I mean, we went from 30 members to 1,000 members in a year, from 2008 to 2009, and it was all on the back of Facebook marketing. So I was addicted to that, and I applaud you for recognizing the downfalls of starting something like this and having an expectation. As Mr. Beast says, do 100 of these episodes, then worry about your audience. And he said, just get the content out there.
Next year.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's our thing. Yeah. But also, we do want to share with the world, of course. Yeah. But it's hard to.
My mentality is that the world is going to digest it as it needs it. Our only job is to keep the conversation going and to do the things like invite 20 people a day. But I limit that because I find myself going click, just one more, click, don't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not it. Like, I just want this to reach people who need it. If no one needs it, let it die.
I when I was making, I'm a man of many hats, as you're learning real quickly. When I was building my video game club,
awesome,
and I didn't have a brand, and I knew I had a location, and I had a reason why I was doing it. I had a video game I wanted to play, but it needed to be bigger than that. I went and had one-on-one organic conversations with friends and strangers at breweries and restaurants and bars all over Columbus, and I would opt them into a private Facebook group where I'd tell them what I was doing. If they were interested, I would invite them to this Facebook group, and then they would get to see our journey, because I didn't want to make it this public thing. It wasn't about democratizing a brand. It was about like, hey, I want to find people that are passionate about things that they're similar to what I'm into, and I want to have an organic, open story. And a lot of my friends that helped me run that club, because it was a no employee money pit. I never intended it to make money. I lost tens and tens of thousands of dollars running it. It was just all passion, and it was my personal flare outlet during my marriage. Didn't realize it at the time, but I look back on it. It was me trying to be me somewhere where I didn't feel like I could be me in my own home. It was amazing to build a community around a handshake and a conversation. I used to carry around a folded piece of paper that had like a floor plan of this place. And I still have it, like, cause I thought, oh, this is an awesome relic, cause it's all ripped up and stuff. But I would just whip it out and talk to people organically to build community. And instead of just going and clicking on every single person, like everyone's going to like the video game club. I'm like, no one's going to like the video game club. That's okay.
Yeah. No, I love that story. And it actually shows a piece that I've been missing. That like I'll kind of mention this to people, but maybe I've gotten like too far away from this isn't for me. That I need to be talking and maybe preaching a little more outside of this to see who else needs it that I'm not going to reach on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we have a YouTube channel, but I got to get this on Spotify and stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah.
Use that.
And kudos. I'm back at you. I hope that this is a jumping off point for me, and maybe I'll have a competing podcast.
Yes, have us on.
Yeah.
And maybe me, just not Aaron.
Yeah. Meet thy Brian. Is what I'll call it. Yeah.
Before we kind of get into the finality of this, and we talk about what I've distilled from this conversation, and hopefully what y'all have distilled from this too. One of the things that you've experienced with, and we talked about at the beginning, was spiritual medicine.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share your journey about how you got into, obviously no names of anybody or anything like that, but not just your journey there, but what you've experienced during, because you've shared some really cool out of this world stuff with me.
Yeah.
And I want other people to hear that too. And then talk a little bit about maybe not what you expect this weekend, but when you come back on for part 2 and discuss any changes or delta that has been between those two. Yeah. Let's start that off now to give us a foundation of what this is, why it is, and how it is.
Certainly. So the long short story is that one of the first people that ever worked with me for my company was a very interesting analytical guy who, as I grew my company, he and I were yin and yang to each other in such a positive way. He was this detail-oriented, ROI-driven process builder that didn't want to screw up and would always fix things to make them better. And I was a guy that I insulated him and allowed him to just blossom. And I say that as in, I didn't let him ever think he screwed up on anything. And I would nudge him into, over years, I would nudge him into growing as a person instead of pushing him, because I knew if I pushed him, he would just go away. And I built my company off of he and I's relationship. We did design work together. He did estimating, bidding, all these things. He was an amazing soul that I worked with until 2018. He'd always, every review, he said, I'm like, what's your goal in life? What do you want to do? He's like, I want to make enough money that I can live in Costa Rica and not do anything. I'm like, cool, good goal. And then as he increased his income, I kept saying, are we getting there? We getting there? We getting there? And then as he started to work inward on his health, he had some health issues. He was working through his health issues. He started to say, hey, I want to change. I don't want to work Monday through Friday. I want to work, less days. And we started I just shifted with him. I was like, we'll just work with you, dude. One day we worked on a project together, and that client happened to be like a leadership coach, saw some potential in him, got him to go through some coaching programs here locally, Next Level, if you know that.
I knew the person that popped into my head as soon as you said
and
that.
Because of that coaching experience, after it, my guy came back and said, I don't want to work full time anymore, and I'm going to go, I'll still work for you as a consultant, but I'm going to go live in Florida for 6 months. I was like, what? I'm like, we got to finish this guy's project. And it created a lot of problems on that project because I didn't have the guy that designed it with me. And I was like, hey, sorry, dude, like you kind of created this. And so that was the journey of my friends leaving this company. And he went on this health kick. He made his health better, physical health. And we always stayed in touch, and we worked on stuff over the years. We still work on stuff. And then in 2020, when Dad died, I mean, there was only 4 of us in our first year in business. So he worked with my dad for 8 years, he's an influential dude. So he came back and checked on me. He saw how depressed I was, and he checked into me. And then the beginning of 2021, he calls me up one day out of the blue, and he's just like, hey, I was talking to one of our mutual friends, and they said you were still pretty down in the pits. I'm like, yeah, I hate my life. I don't want to do this anymore. Everything sucks. Screw this. And he's like, yeah. Well, you want to come visit me? And like, me and my girlfriend are going to be in Austin. We're taking our RV, around the country. We're going to go to Austin. I'm like, yeah, sure. Never going to schedule it. Tell me when to come. Give me a reason to come, and I'll show up then. And so like a month goes by, and he's like, hey, sends me this event, like text me this event. Hey, there's this event going on. Do you want to come to it? And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. This is how my brain works. I trust people. I don't look at the details because I trust people. So he was a drummer. He did sound healing. He did like drum circle things. I'd gone to some of the sound healing where he used percussion and music and crystal bowls and stuff to really create an awesome environment. I get this link and I'm like, that's what this is. This is a drum circle. It was not a drum circle. It was called Cambo, which is a frog excretion that is a poison that they burn you. They're called opening the gateways, and they apply it to you, and you have an out-of-body experience over a 10 to 15 minute experience. It's a cleansing. You don't really hallucinate. It can cause purging, puking, crying, yawning, things like that, body shakes. But anyways, I go down to Austin thinking I'm going to do a drum circle. And it was like the day before, he's like, hey, don't forget to sign up. And I'm like clicking. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I'm like, are you okay? Whatever. I'm like, he's doing it, I'll do it. And I'm not joking that when I was there, we get there in Austin, we go to this couple's house. We're in this couple's house. We're all in this living room. There's this like beautiful blonde woman in like very thin, like white robe stuff. And she like looks me in the eyes. And again, I'm in depression mode, right? I don't like life. She looks at me and she's just like, the way she's looking at me makes me feel like she loves me. And I just met her. And I'm like, I don't want to be loved. Like, who is this woman? And then like all the people there were just super freaking nice. And, they go through this experience of like, hey, okay, we're going to burn you. This is what's going to happen. There was like 7 of us. And then the woman that lived there, her name was Carol. She had this, what's called the meta meditation. And it's just like, I am loved. I'm good enough. I deserve to be happy. And like, we went through this meditation as a group. And then that blonde woman and Carol went one by one and administered Cambo to each of us. I happened to sit as the last person. And I sat, I laid on a couch. And for 45 minutes, I said that meditation to myself. And it just started to change my life. This one single meditation. You would think that since it's changed my life, I would know it exactly. I don't. That's how my brain works. I do this Cambo experience, and it did feel like it was like getting a lot of gunk out of me. And I had a couple other things happen that day. But as we're finishing up the experience, the two hosts are like, hey, we're going to go down to Peru for 8 weeks and relearn everything we've ever done with ayahuasca. And then when we come back, we're going to jump in our RV and go to Columbus, Ohio. You want to do ayahuasca? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, like, I'm in your home. You just burned my arm. I kind of trust you. Like, I know, like, I understand that whatever your intentions are, I can tell there's a purity to them. And that was like my introduction to this plant medicine moment. I've never done Cambo since. I have friends here locally that do it and administer it. It hasn't been something I've been pursuing. But when I went and did ayahuasca for the first time, it was a 3-day experience out in a cabin, and like an Airbnb cabin. If anyone asks, it was a meditation retreat. I mean, if you want me to describe the whole experience, or do you want me to? Okay, cool. So you get there like on a Friday afternoon, and it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 3 days. No, you get there on a Thursday afternoon, and you pull in. You're supposed to like diet. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to like cut out like alcohol, marijuana. some people can't do it because certain medications you can't have, any kind of inhibitor medication, antidepressant, stuff like that does not react well with ayahuasca. And it's not good. You got to be clear. So there's some prep work, and they provide a packet, and they kind of explain that over the 4 to 6 weeks heading up to the thing on what they suggest that you do to have the best experience. And they interview you and make sure that you have the right intentions. And they interview you and ask, why you're there and what you're looking for. And it's not for everyone. And when you get there, you have a brief kind of explanation of how the weekend's going to go, and then you dive right into the medicine. So ayahuasca, they call it medicine. It's from, Peru, and our shamans, while they're from Austin, Texas, have, trained underneath Karu shamans, and they have this whole lineage of people that have protected them and supported them to bring the medicine to America. And I'm sure some people listening to this may be like, oh, it's cultural appropriation. Choose the words you want to use. Like, the story that our shamans say are like, the shamans from Karu are like, this needs to go to the world. The world needs healing. We need to stop insulating this. Like, it can't just be our thing. It has to be everyone's thing. The world needs healing. And I believe that. And I accept that because I've seen the healing in people and in myself in those ceremonies. So you go into it, and it's a liquid format. There is intention around everything that you do. The shamans explain why they're doing everything. They tell you the experience you're going to go through and the spectrum that it could be, and they try to create a safe environment. And that first night, every single new person, and old people included, are super anxious. It's scary. You're like, what am I about to do? Why is this person dressed up like a unicorn? Why is this person, snorting tobacco? And why is this person putting eye drops in their eyes? And why are there tarot cards everywhere? It's like, there's a lot of layers that some people are like, oh, that's normal. Other people are like, I've never seen this before. I'm anxious, right? But then everyone goes through this experience together. And then that night, as you come out of it, you all break bread because you've kind of fasted for the day. At a certain point, you fast each day. And you break bread and you talk about your experiences, and then you just connect with everyone. And then the next morning, you have an integration circle, and everyone gets to tell their story. And it can take 4 hours to tell everyone's story. And there's a back and forth. The shamans say, hey, Brian, what'd you go through? And then you share it. And then they provide context, or they maybe step up and say, hey, that's negative thought, or that's this, or here's a lesson for everyone from what Brian just said. And so they do that. And then you have this break in between, like around lunchtime, where you just take a nap, you journal, you do whatever, and then you rinse and repeat. You do it again Friday night, you do it again Saturday night. So it's 3 ceremonies. It's a husband and wife that run it, and they take turns being the leader. So one runs the show, and then the next day the other will run the show. And they were both in their past lives amazing musicians. And there's a lot of music and singing and instrument playing and different kinds of instrument playing. And there's some stuff that is to bring you into a space, take you to a place, and then they play the room. They go, is everyone freaking crying? Is everyone laughing? What are we doing with the energy here? And if someone's going through something really difficult, one will break off. And then there's a couple of folks who they're apprentices. So they're not like running the show, but they like support the shaman. So in food prep, in managing people, in managing situations, if someone's really struggling and needs to go to the bathroom or whatever, there's someone that can step up and help out. So I feel like it's really safe, and I haven't seen it. I mean, I've experienced some interesting moments where people get really upset or deal with their ego, and it's like a distraction to the group. But even in that is a giant lesson for everyone, because you get to be witness to some vulnerable, toxic trait of someone, and you get to go, well, this is a life-changing moment. They're either going to see that this is what's ruining their life, or they're going to continue to do this. And holy crap, I have something like that inside of me. And I just changed because I got to watch someone else go through this thing. What else? I guess back to my experience. So I did that in 2021 in the spring, and the shamans only come once or twice a year to Columbus. And they came in the fall of 2021. I did that. And in that ceremony, so I did 3 ceremonies last year, all in Columbus. I ended up coming 3 times last year. So I've done 5 ceremonies up until this moment in my life. And my second ceremony was the most prolific spiritual journey I've ever been on. And I say that because it's very visual what you're going through. And I guess I kind of skipped over what ayahuasca is. It's a 2-part concoction that takes many days to prepare, and they sing into it as they make it, and they spend a lot of time making it, like the shamans do. And it's DMT is the psychoactive drug, and then or medicine or plant, whatever you want to call it. And then the ayahuasca root is the inhibitor, because DMT is naturally producing in your body, but the ayahuasca root stops it from being absorbed, and it creates the psychoactive experience that lasts somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. And it is each bottle of it's a little bit different. It can be like a ramping up experience. It can be more of a roller coaster where you have highs and lows throughout the entire night. It can be something where it's just you go up and you're just there, and then you brought down. There isn't really, in my experience, any major side effects outside of sleep deprivation, and it's mostly because you start at night, and so you start at 6 or 7 at night, and then you're coming out at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, and you're like ready to tell stories, and you're hungry. You end up staying till 5 or 6, and then we get up at 8 or 9, and so you kind of do that 3 days in a row. You get tired. It does really expand your mind and your brain, and so there is some integration experience the week after where you're just like, hey, like maybe don't make the hardest decision in your life next week. Don't make that big real estate purchase, or don't propose to your girlfriend. And they do talk a little bit about that in their packet about like sexual intimacy and, big decisions, and like trying to insulate yourself from those big moments being right before or right after a ceremony, because you're tired. You're way more aware of what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, and then spiritually, you're way more aware of what everyone else is going through. I remember the first time I ever walked down the street. It was like the Sunday I got home, and I'm walking down the street to Land Grant Brewing Company to get some barbecue because I hadn't eaten meat in like 2 weeks. Yeah. And I see this guy in the alley, and I just see his face, and I remember going, he's going through a lot of pain. I can see this pain in him that I would never have I wouldn't even looked at him, a week ago. But now I'm just like, I see his aura, I see this energy floating, and I'm just like, whoa, this is really weird. And I couldn't drink. Not that I couldn't drink. I didn't want to drink. It did nothing for me for like 2 months. And I mean, like I would drink it. I'm like, I don't really I'd drink like a quarter of a beer. I'm like, okay, I'm good. It's fine. And, but that epic moment that I had in my second ceremony, I got to, and this is a visual long story. I won't tell every detail, but I'll say this. It was my second ceremony. So I had already had 4 days of trying ayahuasca and going through this experience. And I remember this night so vividly. I was laying there after I'd taken the medicine, and the other 4 times, 15, 20 minutes in, I'm starting to see visuals. I'm starting to dive into the medicine. And then this time, nothing. And I'm like, man, it's like 45 minutes in. I'm like, nothing. What is going on? I'm laying on my back on this mat, with a pillow and a blanket. I'm like, what is going on? Why? I'm like, is something wrong? And I just couldn't figure it out. And then I finally go, I'm just going to get up and move a little bit. So I move to my knees, and I turn around with my stomach facing the ground, and I pick myself up, and I'm immediately like, oh, I'm going to throw up. I need to throw up immediately right now. And they give you a bucket to do that because that is something that can happen. And I start throwing up, and I go to purge in this bucket, and it was like this video game time travel experience, like immediately like space tunnel whooshing through my face. And it was like, I'm going somewhere. And I remember my eyes going, what is going on? Like, I remember going, I'm processing this as I'm puking, like I'm going somewhere right now. Where am I going? And I finish, take a drink of water. I lay back down, and it's like, and I'm just deep in the medicine, and I am standing in my dad's room of his house where he died. The room's completely empty, and his spirit energy is just sitting there, just standing there, like, what's up? And I'm just like, what? And I'm like, Dad, you're dead. He's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yes, you are. You're dead. You need to be at your grave. And he's like, I'm not dead. I need to say goodbye. I don't want to die. I'm like, well, you are dead. And you need to say goodbye. He's like, I need to say goodbye. I didn't get to say goodbye to anyone. I'm like, well, let's say goodbye. And I just had this, like, I know what I need to do. I need to walk this man through his life. And I like grabbed his hand and I walked out of our house and I walked down the street in Granville and I walked downtown Granville. And on the way, we said goodbye to anyone he wanted to say goodbye to. We said goodbye to, his daughter and the grandchildren and his friends in Granville and his girlfriend. And I let him spend time with his girlfriend. And then we walked through all these other towns, all these other parts of his life, including things that he enjoyed, things that he didn't enjoy, and he would change age depending on what he wanted to experience. When he said goodbye to my mother, they were in their 20s. It was in their first house. It was before I was born, the height of love, right? They got divorced later on in life, so there was this separation. So he wanted to see her when it was not all that pain. He wanted to go roller skating. I watched him roller skate for 20 minutes, and I just sat there and I just watched him. And I was like, you just roller skate all day you want, whatever. And we got to this moment as we're walking down the street to his parents' house where he grew up. And I saw him start to get anxious. And he started being like, let's say goodbye to Columbus people. And he was like going through all these Columbus people. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But like, that's just a random business contact. Do you really want to say goodbye to him? And I finally got hard on him. I was like, Dad, we got to go say goodbye to your mom and dad. Like, let's go. And he was like nervous of seeing his mom. I'm like, oh, you have an anxiety of like, you're not good enough. I know. I was like, she doesn't know how to love you. And I'm like solving this thing that I've always seen that he couldn't see. Like he never got the love he needed from his mom. And I knew it and I saw it. I just never knew how to vocalize until this freaking spiritual awakening moment. And I take him to meet his mom and dad. And he goes to hug his mom. And when he goes to hug his mom, he's a little child. And I'm like, oh, that was an inner child thing. I have not seen him. I've seen him go younger, but never child. It's the first child moment. And then he hugs his mom and he turns to his dad and he turns into a 40-year-old something. And like just, the best physical version of himself, the height of his like commercial construction career, like all this potential. And I saw his dad just like say all these nice things to him, like, like I'm proud of you. And I saw him and they go to embrace. And right when he hugs his father, this spirit of him starts to float up into the sky. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm sitting there looking up and I like, sure as day, I looked at that and I was like, he just turned into a condor. And I remember going, I don't know what a condor is, but I know that's a condor. Like, I know it's a big bird, but that's a condor. I'm like, he just turned into a condor. What the hell? Okay. And I look back down and that thing I'd been carrying around for the last hour, and it was a legitimate hour of this experience, was empty. It was a hollow shell of energy. And I was just like, oh, we need to take this energy to the graveyard and bury it. This is my job now. He is not here anymore. He's up there. This thing right here is my job. And I remember the moment I said that, I went, I'm not good enough. And I was like, I need help. I need you, Dad. I need someone. And I won't say the name, but one of my dear friends in life that like got me through a lot of stuff was at that ceremony laying next to me. And as I thought that, he put his hand on me. We're not allowed to touch. He doesn't remember touching me. He said he didn't touch me. I'm like, I remember going, I don't have you anymore, Dad. I need help. And boom, my friend touches me. And I'm like, I have community. I have friends. I have the help I need. I am the help I need. And I picked this energy up and I walked it to that gravesite and I buried it and I rested him and I like let go of all this pain around his death. And then honestly, like I got up and I was just like, whoa, like holy shit, like this is life changing. And I just did something I never thought I would do. I wasn't looking for this when I came to it. Holy crap. And I remember I spent most of the rest of that night processing generational pain in our family and my uncles and cousins and aunts and grandparents, and like processing like all this pain that everyone had gone through, and like forgiving them for any kind of issues that not even my problems, just breaking the pain and making it easier for everyone to live life. I've never done that again in any of the ceremonies I've been in. And I don't think everyone's going to experience that based on the 40 or so people I've done this with. Not everyone has death, spirit journeys like that. But some people have done things like that. Some people do that inner work inside, generational work. That was it. It's still to this day when I go into that story, it's just like a resetting of why I'm alive and like what's important to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing but wow. And thank you.
Yeah.
Let's take a minute to just sit with that. Everyone talks about generational trauma. We know it's a thing nowadays. To experience something like that, to be inside it, to have a story. It's not a story, you lived that. In a reality that is not shared by Monday every day. It's got to be correct on some level. It's I think you used the word pure earlier, and I'm really grateful that you shared that. And it's something, one of those things that I was hoping to learn. These things are possible. Spiritual medicine is a real thing, and I think that all the generational trauma, all of the chronic illnesses, all of the hurt and pain, and the things that we're trying to change on the outside of ourselves today and making a change in the world, well, the real change is always on the inside.
Yes.
We were talking in Bhakti Yoga about the different plans or the planes of existence, or some people in Western culture might say the spiritual plane.
Mm-hmm.
And you might call it heaven or hell. And some people start to realize that it's not a place you reach after, it's a place right now.
Yes.
And that the spiritual plane is a vision and a filter, or really a release of a filter that we can see in the moment here right in front of us. We become spiritual beings. This becomes inspiration that you can feel the joy and the nectar of the juice of life in you, around you. And I've only had little experiences with this compared, and not even to compare, but I'm just, astonishment is not the word. Grateful is definitely a word that I am, because you shared this. But it's incredible. And I feel so natural that it needs to be more. And as the world hungers for it, it will be present. And so I just want to thank you for sharing that. Aaron, do you have anything that you want to reflect on that before we kind of come to conclusions?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful story. I almost want to go with you this weekend. Can I
How much
experience?
Yeah.
Start an RV, Aaron.
Yeah.
Right. But no, that's an amazing story. Like, really, that.
Appreciate that. I feel compelled to say that if others, listening or watching later on go, wow, that's amazing, I want to do this, right? I don't think ayahuasca is for everyone. I think it can be, but not everyone's ready, and not everyone will ever be ready. and having been influenced so much by it and how I live my daily life now. And I see some other folks who use it for the right reasons, but don't have maybe the right tools for integration to fully apply it. It is so important that you don't go and do a triathlon and do no work before or after, right? It's the same with ayahuasca. If you have nothing, if you're not practicing mindfulness, meditation, inner work of any kind, however you do it, and you don't have someone that help you have a lens or a mirror to show your things that you need to work on or have conversations and better yourself, it can do a disservice to you, because you're going to disassociate or disconnect from your ego and talk to it in real life, and you're going to be able to look at it, and then you're going to be able to see the best version of yourself, and then you go back into the world, and that ego can warp it and turn that best version of yourself into a way to feed ego. And if you don't do any work around that, then you start to look and hurt yourself and others trying to be the best version of yourself.
Your ego cannibalizes yourself.
Yes.
Wow.
And so you have to do work before and you have to do work after. And what you learn in those few days, for what you learn in those few days to stick. And trust me when I say this, you could do 15 ceremonies and not have that kind of experience. And some people have very little visuals. Some people have wild visuals, and some people have these different planes of existence experiences. And I feel like my first ceremony I realized I was kind of an open conduit, and I could connect to anyone in the room and see what they were doing. And I had to battle with my ego trying to help people in their fights that they were going through, and not do their work. And I worked on insulating myself. And then I went back to, well, no, I'm a conduit. I know how to be a conduit. The secret is just don't do their work. And from doing that, I realized there are people who play in the plant world, in the tree world, and they see and feel and experience life from plants. There are people that do that with animals. There are people that do that with both. There are people that do that on a spiritual human level, and then this godly plane. And I've seen all of those and experienced all of them. And some people only know how to go all the way to the top, and they're just like, hanging out with Buddha. But they also don't know how to apply it to regular life, because you have to learn how to walk on this earth.
So far removed.
Yeah. But it's amazing to see that people can go there, because that's another level. Others are wildly mischievous, and they're very spiritual, and they sometimes are disconnected from society because they live with plants and trees, and they see life from the world of the forest, and they're awesome and fun to be around. But like sometimes I'm like, you're never going to run a successful business, because like it's just, you just don't see it that way, and you don't need to. But I just kind of wanted to put some of those bumpers around that kind of thing. And I'll also say, like, do it however you want to do it. So I've had some friends that I've introduced to, and they're like, the first time I want to do it, I want to go to Peru. Go do that. You want to do it locally, cool. Just know, do your research on the shaman. I say that as someone who didn't do my research, but I went to their house and I met them in person and I experienced them, on a human level before I ever went and did anything like this. And I had other people that had done that already that I trusted. So have some layer of trust, because the shaman or the guide or the facilitator is the key to your success ultimately. And there's a lot of good people who want to be shamans, who are shamans, who don't know they're doing it for the wrong reason, because it's an egoic thing too. And that's not just a here in America thing. That is down in South America. It's human thing. So yeah.
Perfect. All the things. I'm so grateful for this episode, and Blake, you coming on sharing. Really quickly, I'd like to try and leave people with tools that we might have distilled from this conversation. And I have a few notes around that I'll share. And Blake and Aaron, please add to it. And we'll choose 1 to 3 of them at the end and repeat them 3 times, because I've realized from talking to people, it's annoying, but repetition is the only thing that works.
Yeah.
So, the tools. I like the first one that you said, Blake. When you're in a meeting and you have this awareness and you say, "This is coming from ego."
Yes.
That's a big one. It's just voicing the awareness, so it makes it not. When I don't voice things, they tend to slip away real quick. But if I voice them, this is coming from ego. This is coming from ego. This is coming from ego. It removes it. It's a different. It's objectified at that point.
Yeah, and it's setting an intention around the words you're about to use and accepting critique, right? Because you might say, "I need you to do this right now because of whatever." But if you can say, "Hey, I know this is coming from ego," it allows them to go, "Oh, like this is important to them, but I can call them out if I need to." If you've created that environment that you can work with people that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is coming from ego is a tool. Another one that I come into a lot, we talked about a lot here, is recognizing attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And attachment goes hand in hand with desire, goes hand in hand with expectation. And if we look at it, all of our hurt and disappointment come from attachment, desire, and expectation. Like all of it. That's why the mysteries and the inner work preach, disattachment, detachment. I'm a huge cartoon fan. Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra are 2 things that I've actually learned some very magical and beautiful things from. And I love the mantra, "Let go your earthly tether, enter the void, empty and become wind." And when I'm feeling that attachment, I already feel lighter just by saying it. My arms feel a little bit just less heavy. And if I say that a few times, "Let go your earthly tether, enter the void, empty and become wind. Let go your earthly tether, enter the void, empty and become wind." What I say 3 times makes it true. And it's just easier to breathe afterwards. And so I don't even know if that's ego or attachment or anything else, but letting go and figuring out how we can let go is difficult, but it seems to be the way. So recognizing attachment and then being able to let go of it.
Yes.
What do you guys think about that? What does that mean to you, or is it something we should just repeat?
Acceptance, intention. I already wrote it down before you said it. And those are the words that came up as you were saying it. So, because there's an acceptance, which goes back to that release of the grip. You have to accept what is, not what is not. So, there is no past, there is no future, because there is only now. And you can't change what happened, and you can't do anything in the future until you're in the present future, until you're in that moment. You just have to accept what is, and that's the release. The release. And then the intention, you say with this is coming from ego, setting intention in what you do and acknowledging intention. The more you acknowledge intention in your life, the more you'll apply it, and the more you'll be aware when you're not doing it. Because I've had sharp moments in the business in the last 6 months, going back to doing business every day, going to work, where I have started a conversation from fear and anxiety, and then I watch my leaders extrapolate on that fear and anxiety. And the moment they do that, I go, boom, whoa, we're not going to make decisions from fear and anxiety. It's not that you don't have fear. It's not that you don't have anxiety. Don't make the decision from it. Have the intention to go, I have fear right now, or I'm tired, and maybe today's not the day to make this big decision. I'm going to sleep on it, and just set that intention out. And it releases you of going, man, I gotta, this person harmed me. I need to call them right now and let them know I'm in pain. Oh no. Or I can process this and then call them and see if I have an objective way, if I even need to call them.
So can you repeat those two words that you just?
Acceptance and intention. Acceptance and attention. Acceptance and intention.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. The final one that I've been told by my friends and family, I heard you say, and I know, Aaron, you practiced this probably for the first time last night. Give yourself space.
Mm-hmm.
Only when we can give ourselves space can we have the space to let go. If there's no room to drop, how can we let go?
Patience. That's the word. Patience.
There you go.
And you give yourself space. This is something that I want to say aloud for myself again. Space. As you read these books that tell you wake up at 5:30 in the morning and take the cold plunge and do the breath exercises and read the books and write the words. Some of us find space in watching YouTube videos, and some of us find space in eating food or sitting with nothing or listening to music or playing video games. Find your space where it's natural to you. Accept your boundary and say to yourself, when I'm not doing the thing I think I'm supposed to do, that's the thing I need to do for me to have space.
Can you say that again?
No. When I'm not doing the thing I think I need to do, and I'm doing something that I don't think I need to do, that is the thing I need to do to find space.
One more time.
Oh,
For the homer, hit that triple.
if I'm not doing the thing I think I need to do, and I'm doing the thing I shouldn't do, that is the thing I need to do to find space. I changed it every time, by the way.
Yeah, but the message was still clear.
And from that, if you do that over and over and over and over and over again, you start to find a true non-egoic confidence where you stand and you are sure of yourself and you can look people in the face and you can say, this is who I am. And you can watch them get mad and hurt and you can go, they're not mad and hurt at me. They can yell at me and cuss me out and fire me, or they can talk ill will of me and call me egoic or say I'm a gaslighter and be like, they're just taking their pain, applying it to me and trying to get other people to believe in it. That's not about me. That's their thing. And you just have confidence in yourself that the 6 hours of video games, staying up at 4 a.m. and waking up and feeling stressed out, you just go, that's what I needed. And I just have to accept it. And the confidence creates a rhythm in life where you just start to give instead of take.
Blake, thank you.
Absolutely.
Aaron, thank you. And I'm going to thank the part of my ego that let me here today.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hell yeah. Good. Thank you guys.
We will, Blake, see you
In a couple of weeks.
in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
after the journey.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Heck yeah. Thanks everyone for watching.
Cheers.